76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Is that you? I'm the CEO of 5 different companies. I wasn't born into it. We lived on welfare, but I wanted more. I created this show, The School of Wealth, helping people escape poverty like I did. I want to help you out of that consumer debt, teach you how to increase your credit score, teach you how to make more money at your current job or your current business, and then how to actually create generational wealth without changing your lifestyle. It is going to be a lot of fun. This is not like regular school. Hey, I'm Randy Lambeth, and this is The School of Wealth. Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Randy Lambeth, and today I have a guest on the show, somebody that I think you are going to definitely want to pay attention to. So if you are driving, you're going to want to listen to this a second, third time. If you are at home and sitting around, make sure you get a pen and paper because you're going to want to take notes because this guy is a Facebook conversion expert, and he sits down with companies throughout the United States and helps convert Facebook leads into actual clients. So it's my honor to introduce Gus Muñoz Castro to the show. Welcome, Gus.
Hey, Randy. Thanks so much for having me on the show. Hey, everybody.
So we were talking off air just a few minutes ago to kind of get to know each other. You said you stumbled across I don't know if stumbled's the right word, but you came across my podcast looking for real estate investors and successful podcasts, and you reached out and asked if you'd come on the show. I read your bio. I was impressed. So I was like, yeah, let's have you on here. So for the listeners and the viewers on YouTube, tell us about yourself. You know, your background, how you got started in this as an entrepreneur. Were you always an entrepreneur? Your family entrepreneur? But just kind of tell me your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, by training, I'm an engineer. So I grew up in Mexico, born and raised on the border with California, which is why I kind of have a Southern California accent, and went to school in Mexico, got recruited to work for Microsoft, right? Because that was, I mean, for me, it was my ticket. I grew up, you know, near the US. My family was in the US, but I'm not, you know, I was not born in the US, not from there, but I wanted to go there. Like, holy cow, man, this is like the big leagues, right? So everything I did was like, how do I go to America? How do I make it in the big leagues? And I got recruited out of school. I always loved, I was straight A student all my life, 100%, you know, pleased everybody. I got all the awards and I got to go to Microsoft in 2004. And I stayed there for about 10 years until I kind of realized that's a great dream. It just wasn't my dream, right? That's a great, awesome position.
I want to interrupt you on that.
Yeah.
And I'm with my insurance and my tax-free retirement business, I got in this circle with people from Mexico that are engineers for Microsoft. I mean, it's dozens of them.
Yeah,
and some of them barely even speak English. It's a tight group. Yeah. So is Microsoft actively recruiting people from Mexico to come work for them?
100%. And they've been doing it. What is it? We're in 2020 right now. They've been doing it for the better part of 25 years. Every single year. They used to do just my school in Mexico, like one of the top schools, but now they go everywhere across the country because you guys have a huge shortage of, and this is true, man, 100%. Yeah. There's this true shortage of like the high level, really, really, really high tech engineers out there, and they're willing to go to small towns in Mexico to find them. It's pretty crazy.
Gotcha. Okay, that's interesting. So sorry, I did mean to interrupt you because I had my want, which I put in front of everybody else listening. Hopefully some folks in Mexico are listening to this and they'll go to, I have some really good friends that are from Mexico, and hopefully their kids are listening. They'll go to college and go to work for Microsoft. So you realize after being 10 years with Microsoft that just wasn't going to cut it.
You know, I love the company. I love having that career path I wanted to achieve. I was hungry, but at a certain point you kind of go, okay, you know, a lot of my talents weren't being used, right? And that manifests itself in a bunch of different ways, Randy. Mostly you're kind of in a bad mood and you're kind of depressed and you're kind of, it's a drag to get to work. And if you do that enough times, you either have to just kind of suck it in and live with it and go, this is just the way things are. I can't complain. I'm making 6 figures. I have the house. I have the cars. I have the lifestyle. And you know, I'm 28 or whatever. I'm like, what is there to complain about? Right? People that I grew up with, in Mexico. By the way, at the same time in Mexico, there's a huge war going on, right? This is like a lot of violence is exploding. Going back home is not an option for me at that time. I go, well, I got to find something else to do. And my wife got licensed as a realtor in 2008. So she moved up with me to Seattle from Mexico. And as soon as she got her work document, she's like, I want to be going to real estate. I'm like, she's also an engineer, by the way. And I'm like, really? Real estate? And she goes, yeah, man, this is amazing. This is 2008, like the beginning of like the explosion of the market, right? For people who don't remember, the world was ending,
remember. I had a real estate company at the time.
There you go. So you know exactly
22 agents in my brokerage.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was a tough time. My wife was the rookie of the year in 2008, and she only closed like 8 deals. That was like the one of the top performers that year. And she got into it. She had a lot of success as a realtor, all referral and recommendation. And I started helping her out. I got licensed in 2010, started helping her out. And, I started being more excited and more motivated to work at this commission only, sales job than at my 6-figure corporate job for Microsoft, being an engineering manager. So I realized, man, at some point, Randy, you got to make a decision and go, am I going to go with my gut and bet on myself? Or am I going to go to the safe, dream that my parents wanted? Bro, I did not even tell my parents I was making that change until I did the change. I'm like, I've left Microsoft. I'm out. Because they were like, you're set, son. You're set. You're done. No, don't do anything. Just stay there. Never leave that company, and you'll be sad for life. And the reality was, it just wasn't for me. I wanted to bet on myself and take a bigger chance because I could, Ronnie. I mean, we didn't have any kids, just me and my wife making at that point, we were probably making $250, $300 a year between the two of us. I was like, but you cannot, money does not buy happiness. Money helps. Don't get me wrong. Money's great. But when you're unsatisfied and you feel, and you have the potential to be stuck in that what if sentiment, you do not want to be there when you're older. I just knew that instinctively. What if is not where I want to be 30 years from now at all. So I took the plunge into real estate, started a real estate team with my wife. I ran that for about 3 years. And then I started this company, Power ISA, in 2015. And in about a year, I went full-time into this new company because I just saw it infinitely more scalable than my real estate team. I still have my license in real estate. I still close deals in Seattle now on a referral basis. But now I've got 95 full-time employees in this new company, servicing hundreds of clients across the US and Canada. And I think I've found something special.
Wow. So tell me about, what is this Facebook conversion expert business that you got with the 95 employees? And it's an international company, hundreds of clients, you said, in United States and Canada. So tell me about this.
Yeah. So one of the things that, when you get into real estate, when you get freshly licensed, hey man, boom, I graduated. I just signed up with a brokerage. I mean, you know this, right? You ran a team. Agents are like, great. Now what? Right. So the first lesson you learn in real estate real quick is that if you don't knock on doors, hit the phones, talk to people, you're not going to get any business. Even referral and recommendation business. When you're starting out, no one knows you're an agent. No one cares you're an agent, right? To be honest with you. So you got to find a way to generate that business. That's number one, job number one. Real estate is a sales job first, right? And then everything else is kind of secondary. And that's my mantra. That's what I try to tell people. I talk to a lot of new agents and aspiring agents. I go, Gus, what's the number one mistake people make? Gus, what's the number one priority? It's all the same answer. This is a sales job, first and foremost. If you don't understand that, you're going to struggle. You have an issue. And if you don't treat it as a professional sales job, you're going to go on that roller coaster of income because my buddy called me this month and he didn't call me next month. And, oh, hey, I met some great people in open house this month. I didn't meet anybody next month. Oh, I'm not going to get paid. So that's what typically drives people out of the industry. 50%, I've heard 50%, 18 months in, about almost 70, 80%, 2-3 years in, because it's just a really difficult lifestyle if you have no stability, if you have no regular income, right? All of those are sales problems. Those are sales issues, right? And the number one thing people need to learn how to do to be successful in real estate is lead generation, right? That's the first thing. Where am I going to get people's name, phone number, and email? From my circle of friends, from their friends, from my neighbors, from their neighbors, from the internet, from the phone book. on some level, Randy, the answer doesn't really matter, right? You have to find a way that you're comfortable with, that you can work with, that you can afford. And that's the first problem. The second problem you only have if you've solved the first one, which is the lead conversion problem, right? Number one, lead generation. You got to find a way to solve that. Number two, okay, you've got these people's name, phone numbers, and email. Well, now what do you do, right? There is a process to convert these into signed clients, signed buyers, signed sellers. Even if someone is coming to you as the friend of a friend, you still have to convert that lead. You might be able to convert those leads. I would convert my referral and recommendation leads at 90%, maybe probably even higher than that, 90%, right? Because it was a very tight community. People knew me. I was the Mexican engineer from Microsoft, right? I get recommended to the Mexican engineers at Facebook, at Google, at Boeing, at all these companies, because it's a not a huge community, Randy, but it's a tight community, right? And there was enough people to really sustain great business. I would typically do 30 transactions, 10, 12 million in volume in a year, basically with myself and an assistant, right? So it was a pretty good business, not a massive business, but a pretty nice business that I could run just on referral and recommendation. I started experimenting with other lead generation sources, and that's where I saw the explosion. I go, holy cow, referral and recommendation is great. It's difficult to scale, though. It's difficult to scale. Other lead generation sources like online leads, like expireds, like for sale by owners, like cold calling, door knocking, the only limit is your talent and your time. That's it. Your ability to find and train talented people, and how many of them can you deploy to those kind of lead generation sources. So that's what got me to take the deep dive into a role like the inside sales agent, which is the role we provide to other teams. Inside sales agent. The role of this person is to convert those leads. It's another way to help teams, brokerages, different offices with that conversion process. Because you know this, Randy, the hardest thing you can expect a realtor to do day in and day out is pound the phone. It's difficult to do. Once they get busy, it's the first thing they stop doing. Lead generating and lead follow-up. They're like, hey, you know what? I'm super busy. I've got an inspection. I've got to answer that email. I've got an angry client on the phone. I've got an angry seller on the phone. I've got someone with questions. That loan is delayed again. There's always a million reasons to not pick up the phone and continue moving the business forward. That's the first thing people stop. And then a month later, you're back in the hole. You've got no deals closing right away. You've got to pick it up where things left off. So that's why we exist.
I experienced that recently. I found it's a little over $3 million ranch that I wanted to buy. Couldn't get the real estate agent to even call me back. I called her, left several messages, and then I texted her. She texted back, oh yeah, we'll show it. And then never set the appointment, and just poof. And I'm like, that's a $90,000 commission, just on that house. And it's so surprising. And I go to these open houses, and these are $3 to $5 million houses that I'm looking at. They don't write down my name. They don't ask my email. They don't ask my phone number. They don't, and just, it's like mind boggling to me that they don't follow up. They don't even try. And I say that it's the fortune is in the follow up. And you're right. As soon as it's like they have a temperature gauge and they got it set at 88 degrees or 72 degrees. And as soon as they make their 72 grand for the year, they just turn it down. And then they make up for it a couple months later. They got to turn it back up. Now they're in emergency mode. And I see this. I even see this with my salespeople where they do extremely well. This year we were up 400% by August. Nice. In sales. And then my company policy is unlimited vacation time. All my salespeople took most of August and September off. And it was shocking to me. And so I'm hiring new people. And they're like, wait, we don't have enough leads. I'm like, obviously we do, because you guys took weeks off this year. And so it's that interesting thing where people have this thermostat, and we got to break through that thermostat. And I think it's from they're chasing the sun. They're chasing their shadow, trying to get to it versus turn around. And the shadow is like a title, senior vice president or managing broker stuff. Instead of facing the sun and chasing the sun, and the shadow will chase you, and just focus on the core things: making your phone calls, returning the phone calls, following up with people, presenting, and spending 80% of your time on the follow-up. So your company, I'm assuming that's what you guys do, is you have a team of inside salespeople. Am I going the right direction here?
Yeah.
You have a team of
absolutely.
inside salespeople that convert for companies.
Yeah, absolutely. And our focus is in real estate. So real estate agents, real estate teams, brokerages, investors. We don't do a bunch of other industries because this is the industry that I know the best, that I can train my people at the best and do the job at the highest level, right? Help people out. And this industry, the leads are very valuable. You said some of these leads are $90,000 payday. So this is a crazy story, because in the right market, this can make all the difference. So one of our clients, he's actually a owner of one of the big Facebook groups in real estate. He has a team in Malibu and Venice Beach in California and in Los Angeles, right? Some of the highest priced real estate in America in those areas. He buys online leads. He has one of our ISAs working them, right? Calling people up, setting appointments, calling people up, setting appointments. He set an appointment with a lead that 3 months later comes in. They keep following up with them. 3 months later, they're like, I want to put an offer on this property. I think it was a $2 or $3 million property, right? So they go in, he loves it. He goes, hey, what about the home next door? Is that for sale? And they're like, well, it's not, but I mean, you want me to find out because you're already you want to go under contract for this one. Yeah, but I want both, right? The guy's they're like, holy cow, okay. And long story short, they close on both deals, right? And so they get 2 homes under contract, $1 million homes, both of them. And you can do that off of online leads in the right market. The process is the same, though, Randy. The process and the skill set and the discipline you need is very similar to a $1 million property or a $200,000 ranch, in the Metroplex in Dallas, right? The skill set and the process is the same.
I have a friend that earlier this year, he wanted to see a house. He was just interested in this house. Called his buddy who's a realtor. Hey, I want to see this house. He's like, oh yeah, I'll set it up for you. And never followed through. So my buddy drove over there, called the realtor that was listing it, bought it, $30 million house.
Wow.
In Laguna. Sold his house for $28 million and bought a second house for $30 million in Palm Springs. So he literally, in a matter of 45 to 60 days, bought and sold $90 million of real estate.
Holy cow.
And the agent never called him back.
Yeah,
and he
absolutely.
It's mind-boggling. So your company then, I'm a realtor, I have internet leads or whatever. Someone reaches out. Your company then will call that person and convert them and set an appointment and convert that to a potential client. Is that what you guys do?
Correct. And we have a couple of different ways we do that. There's depending on where you're at in your business. If you have a team, if you've got leverage, and you've got people, we can actually place one of our people like a full-time person virtually within your team. Mm-hmm. We call that the dedicated ISA, dedicated plan. And we have other realtors that are not at that level yet, that don't need a full-time person or a part-time person. We even have pay-per-lead options. Okay, if you're only generating 50 to 100 Facebook leads a month, or realtor.com or Zillow leads, mm-hmm. or Google leads, send us those leads and we'll call them, right? So you're not going to get a dedicated person. It's a team, but we're helping you make those calls because every single one of those leads is valuable. But most of what happens, Randy, I wish what you said was the exception. Unfortunately, it's kind of the rule, right? Where follow-up does not happen, right? Signed calls get missed. Informational calls don't get returned. Open house leads, they don't get called back and followed up with. It's rare. It's kind of the exception. I think internet leads probably have the best experience, the ones off the Zillows and the realtor.coms in most markets. I think it's still a 50-50. You're going to get a call back in a lot of markets. And I test this every time I'm in a new city. I love doing this. I go on Zillow, I go on realtor.com. I love real estate. I'm an investor too. I'm always, call, and I love to do this. I'm going to call like 3 or 4 homes because I've got a question. I've got this, I've got that. I'm going to call off of realtor.com or Zillow and see who has any kind of system to follow up with. Those are very high intent leads. Those are very valuable leads, right? I know realtors are going to hate me because they might get charged for that. Don't hate me. I don't do it often. But it's typically a 50-50 that you're going to get a follow-up. The ones that do call, they've got the automated text messages, they've got the full shebang, right? But you've either got that, like massive amounts of follow-up, or people have zero.
Or none.
It's very little in between.
How do we generate tens of thousands of leads a month online, and we find, and I track everything, but off the cuff, I'm going to guess that it's 90% of the people never pick up the phone when we call them. So we only talk to 8 to 10%. Do you find that with them? I mean, and when you fill out a lead form for me because of TSR, and I'm a credit repair company, I mean, you got to fill everything out, and then you got to check a box, and then you got to hit acknowledge. So it's not like they just click a button. It's a very extensive form that they fill out. And
those are the leads that you get. Those are talking about, and marketing parlance, it's long form. Those are long form.
Those are long form leads. And then when they click through a second time, it says, do you give us permission to use an automated dialer to call you because of TSR and then TCPA? Because there's little clauses inside those regarding credit repair companies. So we're very, very
interesting. Okay.
Compliant to these laws. So 90 to 92% of them never pick up the phone. Do you find that with these realtor leads, that when you do call them, if they answer the phone?
So here's the crazy part. So I see a big difference in the conversion rate and the contact rate between what we call short form, like very easily sent leads, like very low intent leads, versus the long form. Long form, you can see twice the conversion rate, 3 times the conversion rate, because of what you said. They're more qualified, they're everything. But let me ask you this. So you see, because I typically see a 90% are not going to pick up on the first day or two, let's say, right? They're just not going to pick up right away. They're not going to be responsive immediately. It can be, let's say 80% are not going to be responsive immediately. What does your follow-up plan look like, Randy? You guys call them right away, but what happens like the next day, the next week, the next month?
We call our clients or our leads one time.
Okay, so that's consistent with what I've seen. 90% are not going to pick up on the first call. On the first call.
Yep.
Yeah.
88% of the people who hire me do it in the very first phone call. 88%.
Understood.
We used to call them 10 times. 3% of the people will hire me on the second call, and then it just goes down from there.
Gotcha.
And so I look at it.
Relatively low converting.
Very, very low. So I look at it as I'm going to call them one time. 88% of the people are going to hire me on that very first phone call. From there, we will text them and email them for the rest of their life.
Okay, great. So you've got some kind of follow-up system in place.
We have a system that until they opt out or buy, until they buy or die, they're getting something from me constantly. And it's mainly an educational series. You get educational videos, educational text messages. And then it's about 20% of the clients that actually hire us. It's outside of that. So 20% of the 12% come from those text messages, and it could take 5 to 6, 7 years. It's shocking how long it takes people to hire us. And our clients don't want to hire me.
Oh, of course.
They have to hire me because they got turned down for the mortgage, and they don't want to hire me. They just have to in order to get their house or their car or whatever it is.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's 20% of that 12% will eventually come through a text message campaign.
I got you. Understood. So, you have a funnel, you understand it, you've analyzed it, you have metrics around it, right? So, you've definitely done your homework, and you've decided that kind of follow-up plan makes the most sense, gives you the highest return. Real estate is a little bit different, right? Because typically real estate, people want to buy homes. Like, hey, and it's an aspirational thing. It's a part of the American dream. There's all these aspects to it. Interest rates are very low right now. There's a lot of opportunities for people to buy. There's also a pandemic going on, right? But even now, the real estate market, and you're an investor, you've seen this in a lot of markets, they're the hottest they've ever been, right? And the leads, the conversion rate is still really, really low on these leads, no doubt, right? It's not going to be the 10, 15, 20% conversion rate, but even a 1% conversion rate, given the cost and the ROI involved, is a massive win. 1% conversion rate for my clients is potentially a 10x return, potentially, right? And if they have anywhere near what you have, Randy, like a multi-year funnel, not a multi-month funnel, which is what most of them have, a multi-year funnel, all of these returns compound. So if you have any way to follow up and educate and provide value to people, even if you've never spoken to them, Those things matter, but it accumulates over time, right? Very few people are going to convert over email. Like they're going to say, hey, Ronnie, I want to hire you, or, as a realtor over email, but they will remember you over email. Your name will be familiar over email. And when the time is right, they might actually pick up the phone and give you a call or respond to that text message. You have to have the long-term mindset, and it is a long-term conversion game. So my company helps with that initial part of it, those first 10, 15, 20 phone calls. But the people that are going to win big long-term have that multi-year vision where every year is a new opportunity to convert the leads, not just the ones that came in yesterday, but the one that came in last year.
My mom just sold her house last week, $450,000. Buyer never saw it. Looked it up online, submitted an offer, full price offer.
Virtual tour, like a virtual tour or
never. He just wanted the land.
Wow.
Never even, because my mom wouldn't let the realtor come in and take pictures of her house. It's a long story.
Yeah.
She didn't want the interwebs to have pictures of her house and the government to know what was going on inside of her house.
Understood.
It's just silliness. But yeah, they bought it sight unseen. They had their realtor go out, FaceTimed them, showed them the outside of the property, the sunset, the mountains. They're like, yeah, full price offer, cash, was closed.
Boom.
So it's interesting how technology has changed. And I think, and I want to see your opinion, but I think realtors will be out of business soon. I think that most realtors, I think that the only saving grace they have right now is they control the MLS. And I think if a company like Amazon comes in and now has a Zillow-like MLS with financing, with title, with appraisals, and it's an Amazon company, which I think is coming, there'll be no reason for a transaction coordinator is what most realtors do. I think the realtors that build relationships will thrive and be extremely successful. But I think 80, 90% of the realtors will be completely wiped out and it's just a transaction. What say you on that?
So this is a hot button issue in the industry. Well, it has been for, I think the last few years. A lot of really smart people are maybe not saying the same thing you're saying, Rondi, but they're saying things are going to fundamentally change in the next 12 to 24 months. Fundamentally change because of technology, because of competition. There's a huge NAR settlement going on right now about transparency and commissions. The Federal Trade Commission saying, hey, how come realtor commissions haven't changed at all in the last 20 years? That's the only industry where that's really happened, right? Why is that? And they sued the National Association of Realtors. So this is a big thing right now. So change is coming. Change is coming. Change is here. I think we're going to see the entire industry fundamentally different, either because of the disruption from Facebook, Amazon, or all of them. They're going to point their ammunition and their resources to real estate, and whether that's going to happen in 18 months or it's going to happen in a year or two. I think the change is definitely coming. But what you just said is so important, Randy. The people that build a moat around their business, that actually know their clients, because Google is awesome as a tool. Facebook is awesome as a tool. Ever tried calling Facebook support? Ever tried calling Google support?
We actually have. We have. A lot of money.
If you spend a ton of money, do they give you the level of support that you expect from the amount of money you spend with them? Because Facebook, I tell you right now, couldn't care less how much money you spend with them.
Yeah.
If you do something wrong, they'll kick you off the platform.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Nobody's business. Especially if you're in a highly regulated industry. They don't care. They could not care less. So there's advantages to these platforms. They commoditize everything. The internet eats everything, Ronnie. It eats everything. What we have to do as business owners is understand that, see it coming, and level up to what you just said. Build the relationship. Who has a relationship with Google? If there was a better alternative to Facebook ads, every single marketer and business owner that I know would try them tomorrow, because everyone hates Facebook. As a platform, as a customer service organization, it's very difficult to work with, right? It's the only show in town for social media, essentially the only show in town for social media marketing. But whoever has that relationship with the consumer, directly with the client, has a huge advantage, even over, forget Amazon and Facebook, over Redfin, over Zillow Buyer Direct, over Open Door, all these other currently competing with realtors for their business. They're currently competing and they're making inroads. Though, you know who they're not making any inroads with? The teams that have built those relationships. I know a lot of folks in the industry having their best year ever during a pandemic in real estate, retail, residential real estate, right? Residential realtors, even realtors that work in multifamily, one of the best years ever, for working with investors as well. So there's definitely, I think the pie is going to get sliced a lot more different ways because essentially the amount of transactions in the US hasn't really changed that much last few years. It's going to get split down even further. So I agree with you, Randy. There's definitely big change coming to the industry. The way to protect yourself is the same way that if Amazon is entering your marketplace, the same way that as any other 800-pound gorilla is entering, you better be closer to the client than they are. You better know your client better than they do, right? Because you're at a huge advantage given your proximity to the end user. It's a huge advantage. If you do nothing with that information, nothing with that proximity, you're going to go away very quickly. If you use it to your advantage, because real estate is such a visceral, emotion-driven transaction, a process, an experience, Randy. It's an experience, man. Maybe the highest level investors just see it as a transaction now, but the consumer, the residential real estate buyer or seller, it's a massive undertaking, right? I think the realtor still, so quote me on this, the realtor still has the advantage in that situation, given the nature of the transaction. Change is coming, but I think I'm betting on the realtor. I think they're actually going to stick it out longer and survive a little bit more than people anticipate, but that it's the disruption is coming, it's already here, and it's only going to get big.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying. I think the professional realtor is going to survive. I think the part-timers that do one deal a year, I think they're just going to get wiped out with technology. And when I buy real estate, we're buying $10, $15 million apartment complexes. There is no emotions whatsoever. It's how much rent comes in, how much expenses go out. We're buying business.
Can I see your pro forma, sir? Right?
Yeah.
Show me the pro forma, bro. Show me the rent list, right?
I want to see the.
Yep. Exactly. Right. So it's totally different. Yeah. But even there, relationships matter, but it's a totally different kind of ballgame. In residential real estate, it's very, passion.
And I agree because like with this realtor that showed me a couple houses, I went to submit an offer the day before they announced the shutdown in Idaho. And so I said, just cancel it. Let's see what happens with this whole thing. And then turned out I couldn't get financed anything because they dropped the stated income loans down to $700,000. Now they're back up to $5 million again. Because of my real estate dealings and my tax returns, it's a mess.
Entrepreneurs,
I don't make any money.
Big entrepreneurs are massive. Yeah, exactly.
So I got to do the stated income or the bank statement loans. So, but I can tell you emotionally, I wanted the realtor to reach out to me. I wanted that relationship, and it was just like, oh, you're not going to buy this house. See you later, and just gone. Right. So I think you're right. I think that the realtors that really treat it as a profession and build that relationship are going to stay in business. Let me ask you this. How have you used, and I ask all my guests this, how have you used credit in your personal life to make your personal life better? What have you done with your credit, and what have you currently do with your credit in your personal life? And then I'll ask you later about your business life.
So my personal life, I think is my biggest credit operation has been, purchasing my first home and then purchasing investment homes. For me, it's been the biggest difference. And again, I come from a third world country, right? I mean, I'm just going to say it. In Mexico, an amazing residential mortgage is 15% interest rate. That's a spanking deal. That's a good job, Gus. That's a solid.
You grew up really cash is king.
Cash is king, 100%. No, bro. I grew up in the end of hyperinflation in Mexico. So this is a funny story. My parents and this is the same in most of the world, except, the US and Canada, where most mortgage, there's no 30-year mortgage in the rest of the planet, by the way. No one, that doesn't exist. This is a US and Canada thing, right?
I know.
So everywhere else has short-term loans. And then you figure out what the hell you're going to do later. 5-year arm, 6-year arm, they're all arms. So my parents get like a 6-year arm, thinking they're going to pay this thing off in 20 years. hyperinflation kicks in while their payment is fixed for like 3 or 4 years, and they pay that sucker off in like 2 years because the money became nothing, man. And this is, again, I don't recommend people bank on that ever. It's a terrible experience. One of the good things was that their mortgage became zero because their buying power became essentially zero. So goodbye fixed rate mortgages in Mexico for 30 years, by the way. No one would touch that sucker with a 10-foot pole because of the instability. So that's where I came from. So coming to the US and getting the menu of options of, hey, well, do you want to buy with a little bit of money? Do you want to buy with zero money? Do you want to buy with this? Do you want to buy, all these options we have? It's a privilege. I see it as a privilege. And it's something that I've used. My biggest source of personal wealth is still real estate. Yeah, I have a business. It's a 7-figure business, all these things. But my still personal net worth is mostly in real estate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, my income is made from my businesses, and I take 90% of my income. Literally, I only live off of 10% of what I make, and I invest 90% of it. And that's the net worth. That's where it's growing. And I couldn't always do that. And
sure.
I recommend that you start with 1%, and then work yourself up. If you can work yourself up, you need to be doing a minimum though of 10%. And every day, and I have 3 of them to do today, I set people up with tax-free retirement accounts every single day, one a day, at least one a day. Every single plan that I come up with, regardless of age, you have $1 million of tax-free retirement in your fund at age 65, whether you're 18 years old or 48 years old, if you just follow the simple plan. And the younger you are, I set one up yesterday. The girl's going to start out with $150 a month. At age 65, she'll have little over $2 million. It was like $2.2 million, starting at $150 a month. How can she do that? She's 23 years old, 20 years old, somewhere in there, still in college. And that's why we're starting at 150.
Love it.
And so people just got to get started. And then back to the credit thing. What have you done with your business with using credit and leveraging credit to maybe do some things that you couldn't have done?
Yeah. So great question. So my background is not in finance. I didn't come from an entrepreneurial family. So my education on business finances, cash flow management, margins has come from the school of hard knocks. So I've made every mistake in the book, right? I've almost run my company into the ground probably 3 or 4 times in the last 6, 7. I left Microsoft in 2013. I have almost gone to zero in my business bank account probably 3 or 4 times because I'm just being ignorant. Because I was selling, I was being quote unquote successful. Top line revenue was growing, was high. Yeah. Bottom line revenue just wasn't there, man. Just wasn't there because you're ignorant. You don't know what you don't know, right? So my biggest thing that I've been able to do with business credit is when I see an opportunity, and then again, by making mistakes, I realized when you get credit for your business, it's for investment, it's for expansion, it's to generate a return that's going to beat that interest rate, right? Essentially, that's what you should look at as a business owner. What's the return I can get on this money? Because yes, as a business owner, you can get terms that are very favorable, maybe a 30-year term, 20-year term. There's also short-term credit available to business owners. And that's more interesting, right? You can get massive amounts of money at a shorter term rate, maybe 6 months, maybe 12 months. Okay, why would I use that? What would I use that kind of money for? Are there any opportunities out there that I can qualify for? And is it going to be ad spend? Is it going to be building up a new sales team? For me, it was making a massive software purchase that I would have had to pay for upfront. I did not have the cash flow for it, but I'm like, hey, if I can break this down over 12 months, this is a 4 or 5x return for me. Do it. Get the line of credit, spread it out over the year, not a lump sum that they wanted, and boom, I built up another leg of my business, right? I was only doing a certain set of services. I built up this huge software platform. Now I have 2 legs to stand on. What happens? COVID hits. One of my legs kind of tumbles. I'm still standing, Randy. I've diversified my business to a certain extent, and I get past the initial shock, and I'm back in business, right? Because I'm not just depending on a single source of income. So for me, that's what credit has enabled me to do, those kind of projects.
What's your biggest mistake, whether personal or business, with credit?
Oh my God.
Making me be vulnerable here to everybody.
Okay. So It all comes down to ignorance, right? Being ignorant, not doing your homework. So that's the fundamental cause, but probably using it as if it were cash to cover operational expenses, payroll, equivalent to taking out a short-term loan to cover payroll. It's a vicious cycle that kills a lot of businesses.
Yeah.
Taking out high interest, short-term
credit.
Unused properly. It's like an assault weapon, right? It's like, hey, those can be used professionally in a great way to defend the country, or it can be used in a really bad way if the wrong person gets a hold of it. I see them as, I don't want to say weapons, that's too strong a word, but I want to see them as two-edged swords, right? They can help you and solve so many of your problems, and used very ignorantly, it can damage and end your business.
Yeah, I used to own a construction company. We had nail guns and power drills and all. And if you use a nail gun improperly, you can kill yourself. And 100%. I've had employees, actually they were subcontractors, literally nail their hand to boards because they weren't doing it. But if you use it properly, man, you can build a whole house in a few days versus hammer and nails are going to take you a long time.
Yeah.
So, hey, Gus, it's been great having you on the show. Where can people find you?
Yeah, I'd love to continue the conversation. The best way is my website, powerisa.com altogether, or on Facebook. As you realize, I'm kind of a big fan of Facebook. You can search me up, Power ISA. You can search that on Facebook and I'll pop up, and also my Facebook group. And
then what is your Facebook group?
It's the Power ISA. It's kind of a mouthful. Power ISA Real Estate Marketing Mastermind. So if you search that, or just go to my website, I have a link on there. You'll definitely be able to find that. And that's a free group to join. Anyone can jump in if you're interested in talking about marketing and conversion.
Cool. I will definitely jump in there. And if it's okay, I'll throw in some credit tips.
Love it, man. We should do a session where I interviewed you in that group for my audience.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a Facebook
we talk
Live
about that. I think it's the number one thing that I see most. I have realtors and I have marketers in that group. They're all business owners. So I think it'd be cool if you can share some of those nuggets.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's schedule that. Get on the schedule and schedule when it works for you. And we'll do a Facebook Live and we'll jump in there, and I will answer any credit question, and I will go over like the 5 top things you have to have and do in order to have an 800 credit score. So Gus, it's been great having you on the show. If you're listening, all of his information will be in the show notes. And if you're on YouTube watching this, it'll be in the description underneath. As always, share the show with other people. We appreciate that. And Gus, thank you so much for being on.
All right. Appreciate it, Randy. Thanks, everybody.